Hi, I'm delighted to be joined by Liz and Nazrin to talk about the ESG issues facing organisations in the life sciences sector and what that means from a tax perspective. So welcome. So Nazrin, first question is going to be to you. What are the key ESG drivers affecting the sector?
It's a really interesting question. So, as you know, innovation and research and development is fundamental to life sciences businesses. And one of the key factors is really thinking through how do businesses fund that research and development, as well as how do they get the right talent into the business to enable them to do that. Secondly, really thinking about access to healthcare and how do they make medication affordable and provide equal access to people. And then some of the other factors are really ones that are not very specific to life sciences, but because life sciences have targets that are earlier than some of the others, it does mean that they need to innovate at a much quicker pace. And that's things around net zero and how do they decarbonize the business.
Thank you. I'm thinking about tax. What does this mean for the tax function, Liz? What should tax leaders think about?
Well, as Nazrin mentioned, the sheer kind of breadth and volume of initiatives that underpin an organisation's ESG strategy means that the touch points across the business are vast. But that's where I think a tax function can really add value and enable the success of a lot of these initiatives, because their core role is to business partner. So they really need to leverage that business partnering role, being really proactive and engaging on the ESG strategy, and ensuring that they're collaborating with their colleagues outside of tax on these initiatives. If I pick up kind of one of the themes that Nazrin mentioned and kind of think about it more specifically from a tax perspective, decarbonisation, net zero, carbon offsetting is or can be a key component of an organisation's net zero strategy. And increasingly, more and more organisations are exploring the role of carbon trading in that net zero strategy. So the tax impacts associated with setting up a carbon trading function are broad. It impacts across taxes. You need to be thinking about your transfer pricing model. You need to be thinking about, am I extending my indirect tax footprint, and what is the VAT liability of all these trades that I'm making? So I think it's keeping in mind that it's complex from a tax perspective. And within tax, you need to be collaborating across the different direct and indirect tax specialisms.
Thank you. And thinking about regulations, interested in what regulations are coming down the line, what the future landscape's going to look like. Perhaps Nazrin, you start and we'll pick up with Liz.
So one of the most fundamental changes we're seeing in the regulatory landscape right now is around sustainability reporting. And this is the landscape that was previously voluntary, and businesses were reporting in line with specific frameworks like GRI. We're now seeing that become a lot more regulated. And while the new regulations, especially across Europe, don't specifically talk about tax, what it does require businesses to do is understand what impacts, risks and opportunities exist to them as a business, and document and talk about how are they sort of proposing strategies and how are they dealing with that. And that's where I suspect tax transparency is going to become really important and will come into something that they need to start disclosing.
Nice.
And I think that the tax function's role in that space is very much driven by where are they in their tax transparency journey. Benchmarking against your peers is often a great place to start. And we have been supporting businesses in doing so. And by going through that exercise, you can then begin to identify where perhaps you have gaps in your tax governance framework or where controls could be improved.
I'm interested in both of your views on the biggest opportunities and challenges that ESG presents to the sector. Perhaps we'll start with you, Liz.
I think one of the biggest challenges is staying on top of change. The sheer kind of number, volume, complexity of regulatory changes that are being announced is incredible. So tax functions are often coming to us and asking, how can I horizon scan? How can I get comfortable that this is something that I need to impact assess or something that I can leave for another day? And we've been working with businesses to use software to create horizon scanning tools, which scans not just tax changes, but changes across the ESG regulatory landscape, with a view to kind of enabling them to then assess appropriately.
Exactly, and I'm going to touch on something very relevant to what Liz mentioned, but it's really also thinking about the pace of change. So there's quite a significant number of regulatory drivers as well as business and strategic drivers that are all going to be happening at the same time. And it's really important for businesses to ensure that they have the right people in the room when those decisions are being made and as they work through to ensure there's no unintended consequences. And that is typically where we see, in a lot of cases, tax is left out of those discussions, and that could potentially mean risk for the business.
Thank you. So final question, Liz, to you. As a tax leader in life sciences, what would you have at the top of your to-do list?
Read my organisation's ESG strategy, if I haven't done so already. Understand the commitments that the organisation has made. Because I think that will really then enable a tax leader to consider how does the tax function act as an enabler to the success of delivering on that strategy.
Thank you both. A couple of key themes really stand out for me. The importance as a tax leader of understanding your business's strategy and then having the right people in the room at the right time, including tax, to make sure that the right changes happen. So thank you, it's been a pleasure.